great to be with you. And Christine, you are a herbalist, but also you started your career as in the biomedical sciences. Is that right?
That's right, yes. From a young age, I decided that I wanted to be a scientist. And so, yeah, I started work for the National Health in Pathology Labs and ended up
Mm.
specialising in haematology. I did about 20 years in that. And looking back with hindsight, I was absolutely completely ignorant about any other form of medicine. I had no idea that what you ate had any bearing on your health. I was absolutely fixed.
Mm.
This is how we do medicine. So I had a big epiphany in my 30s, big change, mid 30s onwards, and it was quite a nice transition. Um, yeah, interesting way of doing things. It's been useful because it has given me knowledge now that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So it's often useful. People have trouble with any hematological stuff. I still have the knowledge
Mm.
to explain blood tests and the like, and know where to,
Mm.
what to do with things. But it has turned me
I
off
mean, it puts you in a perfect
lab
position
testing.
to.
It's turned me off lab testing a bit.
Sorry.
I'm a bit anti any lab testing unless it's absolutely necessary. I like to use clinical skills to determine what's wrong with people rather than lab testing.
Mm. Because you think it's just running medicine by numbers, or it's not
Yeah,
personalized enough, or
we're
what's the
so
reason?
much more than just our blood. You do a blood test for someone, and yes, you'll get a result back, but it doesn't necessarily mean a lot. I think the best example is when I ended up specializing in food intolerances and allergies. And I think a good example to illustrate this is that if you pay a lot of money to have a blood test for food intolerances and allergies, what will be picked up will be anything that produces antibodies in the blood,
Mm.
but it doesn't pick up necessarily what the body really doesn't like. Um, it's it's yeah, it's too reductionist. It doesn't. I find it doesn't
Mm.
work, and it's also
Mm.
not great for clinical skills. If you've got someone in front of you, you can see and hear and so much more if you pay attention to them than if you think, well, which test are we going to do today? Apart from anything else, they're jolly expensive, and I don't think they're so necessary.
Mm. Mm. Well, let's explore a bit more about, why you got so interested in inflammation, which might sound like a silly question to someone that's practiced medicine for so long, but why particularly inflammation did you focus on, and why do you see it as such an important thing to help people with?
Well, any therapist who works as an alternative therapist in any form, be it a homeopath, a naturopath, a herbalist, whoever, will find that nearly everybody who comes to see them has got some kind of chronic ill health, some kind of chronic
Mm.
disease. And almost all chronic diseases have their root in inflammation. Um, this is, it actually started as a project, a teaching project. I was teaching for a herbal school in Ireland, and they asked me what I wanted to teach, and I thought, oh, let's learn about let's teach about inflammation. And I started on that track, and I just kept going, and I could not believe how much
Mm.
everything revolves around inflammation. I think I'd known it, but it was just an interesting thing to learn that every chronic disease, um, in other words, nearly everything people would come and see me about or any other herbalist about, as really does have its roots in inflammation. There are many causes, and that's something I can go into, but the roots are there, the inflammation is there, and so what you have to do to resolve that is to find out one where the inflammation is coming from, and then treat the inflammation. You actually don't need to know about the disease. You may have a disease with long names, long Latin names, and all sorts of amazing names, and you don't need to know, you don't need to understand what that disease is. You just need to play detective and treat what you find. So it's, yeah, very
Mm.
non-science.
Well, it sounds very personalized. And do you almost see it as a like a unifying principle, almost, Christine, that
Yeah,
inflammation is a unifying principle of
absolutely.
treatment in chronic disease?
Yes, absolutely. For chronic disease, it is very much unifying principle, and that was a big reason why I ended up writing the book. Because over the years, I found myself often looking, when I was doing a bit of research around someone's ill health and trying to work out how to treat them, I found I was often looking up herbs, and I found out about inflammation. It kept popping up, and so I thought, well, actually, this is going to be something that's useful for all everybody. This is useful for all therapists. This is useful for anyone with any chronic ill health. um, just having this information is enough to actually get you on the right path to healing.
Mm.
It's simple. Yeah.
And so when you're talking about chronic health, you're meaning
Okay, so
arthritis or chronic
yeah,
heart
so
disease or digestive problem
actually,
or
it covers an enormous list of diseases and ill health. It covers. I'm just going to find my list. It covers allergies, arthritis, autoimmune disease. So that will cover, um, you know, uh, a thyroid disease. It will cover all sorts of things like that. It will cover bladder inflammation. It will cover gut inflammation, IBS, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. It covers cancer. Cancer has a big element based in inflammation.
Mhm.
Cardiovascular disease, yeah, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, that's all based in inflammation. Diabetes is inflammation based, diabetes and metabolic disease. Um, all the inflammatory lung diseases, inflammatory skin diseases, um, neurodegenerative disease. There's so many people now suffering with Alzheimer's dementia. That all has a basis in inflammation. So, all those diseases, I've just covered what most people have in this world, in the world, not just this country. Um, And so if you can deal with those, if you can find a cause for each one of those, then you're halfway there, aren't you?
I mean, normally when we all know about inflammation if we've had a bump or a scratch or we cut ourselves or, bruise ourselves, you see something acute and external and it's red and it's painful and maybe
Hmm.
throbbing or whatever, that hopefully will go away quite quickly. And so, how do you recognize some of these internal signs of inflammation
Yeah.
in that
So
they're sort of
yeah.
hidden in a way we can't see?
So inflammation itself is a healing process. The actual process of healing, as you described, if you bump yourself, if you've had an accident, yes, you get red, you get heat, you get swelling. That's all a healing process, and we need that. It's important. And what should happen is that will then resolve the problem, and we get natural anti-inflammatory chemicals made in the body to stop it, and then that should be resolved, done, finished. However, if the cause of the inflammation doesn't stop, if it keeps going, so that could be maybe an infection doesn't go away, the body can't fight an infection properly, so there's constant infection. It could be a food that someone's eating and they keep putting that food in and it keeps causing inflammation. Um, it could be something toxic. They may meet some toxicity. I don't know, a chemical, agricultural chemical, or something in the workplace that keeps putting in something that causes
Mm.
inflammation. Um, there could be an allergen. They could keep meeting that allergen, and so in that situation, the inflammation cannot resolve. It will keep going. It will keep going. It will keep going. That swelling then doesn't go away. So then you get an area of the body that is swollen and it gets cold. It doesn't get good blood supply because it's stagnant. It's gone completely stagnant, and body can't heal it. It can't get in there with all the natural chemicals to actually clean it out and heal it. And you get stagnation, that means it gets cold, it means it causes pain, tissue damage, and lack of function. Now you can imagine it as a knee. If you bashed your knee and you kept bashing it, kept bashing it, kept bashing it, it will just never heal. And it starts off hot because that's part of the healing process, but later on that just goes cold and it just can't fix itself. So that's what I'm talking about, the
Mm,
chronic inflammatory process instead of the acute, which is we need. So that's what I mean. Herbal medicine is really good at treating that. Conventional medicine puts in steroidal anti-inflammatories, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and steroidal anti-inflammatories, and that's all that conventional medicine has. It really, truly doesn't have much else to treat it with. With herbal medicine, what we can do, we can play detective to find out where the cause is coming from, but then we can also use herbs that will help to clear that whole process. It will get blood supply into the area. It will have inflammation mediating effect. They're not directly anti-inflammatory herbs. They are inflammation mediating
mm.
because what they do is to they do have lots of processes. They don't just go in and stop inflammation. They have lots and lots of different processes to help the whole thing along.
I know we all use that term anti-inflammatory and it's part of our language, um, but it does feel contrary to how herbs work in the
Mm.
body in the sense that they're facilitating a natural process that is
Yeah.
already trying to happen. And often whether you look at it energetically or phytochemically, the plants are initiating that response. So yeah, I'd love you to talk a bit more about immune modulation and
Well,
inflammation modulation.
yeah. There's so many ways they can work.
Mm,
That's the thing with herbs. They will they will improve fluid movement through the area. They will cool it down. I can't think of the ways that they work. There's just so many ways that they work. I think we don't know all the ways that they work, but you know, they certainly do far more than just reduce inflammation. Um, let's find a good. I'm not
it's
going
the
to
wrong word
bore.
to describe it, isn't it? It's the wrong word to describe what the plants do. And one
Yeah,
of the things that I enjoyed about, and in the article you wrote on Herbal Reality as well, is how you sort of broken it down a little bit into how um, inflammation may start through digestion, this more
mm,
chronic form of inflammation, and how that's got an influence with the microbiome, and then how that has a knock on to the immune system and the nervous system, and how in the tradition of herbalism there is that specific knowledge around plants for
yeah,
those
yeah.
systems that have a
That's right.
particular
Yeah,
affinity,
yeah.
and I found that really really fascinating. Particularly the piece on the digestion. I really enjoyed uh, that that area of the book, but also that area in herbal medicine that it as the seat of it's obviously digestive
Yeah,
enzymes, but so many hormones and immunological responses as well.
yeah.
So, be interesting to talk about some of the herbs perhaps that you might use when you're approaching a chronic
Mm.
problem. What would be your way in to help
Well,
someone?
the most important group of herbs that I think that you need to use when you're treating someone with inflammation are the herbs called alteratives. Um, so these are herbs that are able to improve the body's elimination system, improve the way the body detoxifies itself, improve the way the body works to make itself healthier. So ultratives, covers a very big area, but they are probably the most important herbs to use when we're actually treating someone with chronic ill health, because the body has stopped functioning properly. That it's well, in health, the body doesn't need help to do all these things. It doesn't need help to make the bowels work better, to make the kidneys work better. It doesn't need help to do that. But once you've got into chronic ill health, you need help from herbs to help you do this. Um, and so the alteratives tend to work on body systems. So for example, cleavers. Cleavers is a lovely,
Mm.
most people will know cleavers. They know it as goosegrass, sticky willy. Cleavers, Latin is Gallium aperine. Cleavers is a very gentle herb. It's very um, gentle tasting. It doesn't taste strong. It doesn't feel or look as though it could do anything very powerfully, but it does. Um, it's a really good lymphatic moving herb, and the lymph system is so important to keep the whole body working properly. And cleavers, you can use it as a tea, you can put it into a green smoothie, you can do all sorts of things with it. But it will get the lymphatic system working better. It's a herb that you use long term. You know, you'd use it little and often. It's not going to work overnight. It needs to be used regularly. But it's such a safe herb, and it's growing everywhere. Certainly, it grows right through the winter. You know, I pick cleavers every day through the from about maybe October right through till
Mm.
March, April, and it's beautiful, fresh stuff, and it goes in my green smoothie every morning.
Oh, wow.
So
So what
cleavers
do you
is
do? You pick it and you just blend it.
yeah, just put it in my. I go around. I go out every morning and I pick alterative herbs. That's my everyday health. So alterative herbs, I will pick dandelion leaves, I'll pick yarrow leaves, I'll pick cleavers leaves. What else might I pick? Anyway, those certainly go in. They go in my mix, and those
Nettle leaves if you can
yeah,
find them, and
I don't
hopefully not a
particularly like.
burdock. Hopefully not a burdock leaf, Christine, because they really are quite disgusting. But
No, I only pick the nice ones. So, and
yeah.
dandelion is a wonderful alternative. Dandelion works on the liver, it works on the
Mm.
kidneys, um, and gets them working better. Works on the bowels, gets them working better. They don't. It's not an out and out laxative or anything like that. It just makes the gut work better and the liver work better. And so that way we can actually start to clear all these products of chronic inflammation and get the body working better. Yarrow's a nice one too. And all these herbs that we're talking about, they all have inflammation mediating properties too. They're not just there as cleansing, they're all inflammation mediating as well. So they do everything. And the thing is to pick the herbs that are safe. You know, we don't need super strong herbs for these things. The one caution with alterative herbs is if someone is very dry and maybe a bit feeble. So then I would be a bit cautious about using them. But otherwise, everybody with chronic inflammation could take all of these herbs, and they can probably go and fetch them for themselves and pick them for themselves.
Mm, mm. Well, they're all around in the countryside if you can
They
get
are.
there,
Yeah,
and if you can't get out to the countryside to get them, then you can use the dried herbs. You can go to an
absolutely.
apothecary
Yes.
or whatever
You
and
can,
go and
yes,
see a
you can,
herbalist and get
yeah,
hold of them.
yeah, yeah. Very easy to get them. And most herbalists would have them, or you can get them online, or but far nicer if you can go and pick them yourself. Yeah,
So I like that focus on the alteratives that you use them to sort of redress the balance to help
mm.
alter the internal
Yeah.
chemistry, the internal balance. And so is that would that be like your sole approach that you would use more of these sort of cleansing, detoxifying approaches, or do you weed the garden first and then fertilize it again with some tonics, or is there a particular pattern you have, or obviously person specific?
Well, number one, you've got to find out what the problem is in the first place. What's causing the problem? So if you've got
Mm.
a repeated infection, then alongside the alteratives, you're going to need herbs that will fight that infection, be it antimicrobials, antifungals, antivirals, antibacterials, or simple immune tonics. So a good one that's in the middle there is echinacea. Echinacea is an immune tonic and it's also an alterative.
Mm.
So that's quite a useful one to use in that situation. So it depends on the cause of the inflammation. I think that's number one, to say where you would start choosing the herbs, because yes, this is very individual. This is a way of treating people very much in an individual way. It's very important to do it like that, and so the herbs are chosen individually for the person.
Okay. I mean, one thing that I find fascinating about this subject is this health, this interface between the outside and the inside, maybe as a way of exploring it, and the effects of the or effects on the endothelium and the lining of all of our vessels, and so many herbs that seem to have become well known in the last decade or so, or probably over history, but more recently publicly perhaps, seem to be having this um, deeper microcirculatory effect in a way. I'm thinking of turmeric and uh, cacao and gotu kola and things like that seem to have become much more, along with
And
the
the
red wine
berries.
craze and polyphenols, etc.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit about that because it seems like this you use the word stagnation quite a lot of times, and I see that with the flu, and I just would love to hear your views on using herbs that might be more invigorating in that sense of moving the blood or
Mm.
clearing stagnation or inflammation in the endothelium.
Well, probably my favourite for this would be something like ginger. Ginger,
Mm.
uh, garlic, chili for those who can tolerate chili well. So those would be my moving herbs. Those would be my main moving herbs, I think. Um, and I am very cautious with turmeric. Um, I turmeric has become a big favourite with a lot of people, but what I have found is that a lot of people taking too much turmeric are coming up with salicylate sensitivity. So I
Mm.
always urge caution with turmeric, and I would say yes, use it in eating, use it in food, but be very careful taking a supplement because you can overdo it. And if you become intolerant to turmeric, and of course, unfortunately, some of the other things you just said about as well, so the red wine, um, the chocolate, also
Chocolate.
cinnamon, yeah, also cinnamon. All these moving, nice moving, warming herbs are all high salicylate. And salicylate sensitivity has become incredibly common over the last 5, 10 years. I was looking at case studies when I was, because I've just started writing a new book, and looking at case studies, and the number of case studies I have where salicylate comes up with someone as being something they're now sensitive to and causing inflammation is quite incredible.
Mm.
Um,
And
I
how do you
think
know about that, the salicylate intolerance? How do you know that?
how does someone know
How would
they've
someone
got
know
it?
that?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the most common situation is if they are already dairy intolerant or wheat intolerant, which people tend to know, and they've still got symptoms and they think they're eating properly. And the symptoms are
Mm.
likely to be gut based or skin based, usually. Can be bladder based as well. So there can be any of those things. And again, there's inflammation going on. So there's sore, red, pain, and they can't work out because they're eating what they're supposed to eat, and they haven't found out anything that. So salicylate sensitivity is not the same as dairy and gluten and wheat in that you cannot get rid of all salicylates. All plant foods have salicylates in. What you can do is reduce the amount of salicylate you're eating. And what I've seen is lots of people eating blueberries every morning for breakfast, and all the berries out of season every day. And I think that's one cause because we're not supposed to eat berries all year round for every day for breakfast. They're not in season. So that's one cause because they're very high in salicylate. And I think also turmeric has something to answer for, because turmeric made mainstream press, and this is the answer to all your inflammatory problems. And so a lot of people started taking turmeric all the time. So I think those are the two reasons, as well as lots of people having gut damage from food, because it is so common.
Mm.
Everybody I have seen with chronic ill health has a food intolerance. Um, and I've heard that from other herbalists who've specialised in it too. It's I believe
Mm.
everybody with a chronic ill health has a food intolerance, and if you can find that, if you can find out what that food intolerance is and get rid of that, then you're halfway to putting people right. Um, so it's
Mm.
what you're eating is actually more important than anything else to sort
I mean,
out.
every tradition says that, doesn't it?
Mm,
Every tradition talks about the value of Agni or the digestive power
mm.
or spleen chi in Chinese medicine. How do you go about healing that? You know, when we've got, you know, 50% of every food basket in the UK is made with ultra processed foods.
Yeah, and
So,
that's
you know,
that's
that's
of course that's the
50%
other
of all
thing. Yeah,
food sales in the world. The
yeah,
UK is at
yeah,
super high levels of processed foods.
yeah.
How do people go about, given that we're likely all to, you know, grab a snack when we're in a garage or out and about, um, how can you go about protecting the gut, and what can you do to help heal it if you've transgressed or, you
Okay.
know, whatever, been
Well,
exposed to something
yeah.
that damaged you?
Yeah, and anyone with chronic ill health and chronic inflammatory disease needs to do this. Um, Number one, you
Mm.
if you've got a real flare up, you stop eating. You do a 24-hour, it could be a liquid, liquid only fast, something like that. That gives the body a rest, and that will then give you a good idea that actually it's what you're eating that's making you ill. Um, and then you start eating things that are non-inflammatory. So the non-inflam easier to say which are the inflammatory foods. The inflammatory foods for everybody are wheat and gluten. They are dairy. They're pork. Other red meat isn't so bad. Pork is a horror. Um, Oranges, alcohol, sugar. Those are the real inflammatory foods for everybody. So those are the foods you have to stop. And you have to go onto a diet which has got lots of vegetables in, lots of vegetables. You can eat a little good red meat if you want to carry on with red meat, but not too much, and it needs to be beef or lamb. Um, you can eat a little poultry if you want to carry on, but that needs to be organic. You can eat fish if you want to. Again, you need to be careful, not farmed fish. Um, Eggs, again, in moderation are okay. All the pulses, nuts and seeds are particularly good. Those are the foods that people need to eat. Not overdoing the fruit, because fruit has got a lot of sugar in. So, but some fruit is okay, apart from oranges. They're pretty much the only one that you can't eat. Um, so it's going to a really clean diet. That's more important than anything else. Um, Once you've done that, and you see your symptoms go. So, digestive symptoms always go first. That's always the first thing to come and the first thing to go. And if digestive symptoms improve, then you've obviously done the right thing, and you can just carry on with what you're doing. If they don't, then you may need to get some go and see a therapist. Go and find out if there's any foods you shouldn't be eating. Um, get some testing done, and find out if there's something else you shouldn't be eating. But otherwise, simple diet based on vegetables with some protein foods. That's what you have to do. Enough fluids. The fluids are really important. So people need to be drinking, a couple of liters. Ginger tea is marvelous. Ginger is a really good inflammation mediating herb. As long as it's not too hot for people. So it has to be, we have to suit it. Um, but all the herb teas are good unless you're salicylate sensitive. And if you're salicylate sensitive, then you'll react to things like peppermint, spearmint, licorice, chamomile, all those common ones. If anyone reacts to those, then that's another indication that they may well be salicylate sensitive. So that's the way forward. It's plenty of fluids, plenty of good
Mm.
vegetables. um, and move from there.
Lots of
If
herbs in your diet, spices to help your digestion and everything.
yeah,
And so what will you do? Say someone's, got, but what about if you got a more compromised digestion than that in a way? Would
yeah,
you use any herbs with it at all, along with this good diet and I'm
yeah.
sure some other
So I suppose,
recommendations you have for people
so,
as well. But
yeah,
where do you start with the herbs? What
yeah.
are a few ideas there?
So those are the things. The what I've spoken about so far are things that people can do by themselves. That is a we can
Mm,
do all this by ourselves without any intervention from anybody else. If you've got a lot of gut damage, then yes, there are some herbs that would be helpful to heal the gut, because this is then becomes leaky. Tight zones between the cells are no longer tight, and they allow through molecules that shouldn't come through, and that gives us more reaction to foods, more allergies, and so on. So there's a substance called L-glutamine. It's an amino acid, and that works really well actually for gut healing. And it seems people don't react to it. So that's a supplement that you can buy. Slippery elm, marshmallow root, those are two
mm,
herbs
mm,
we would use as powders, and we would maybe mix them with
mm,
something like aloe vera juice, and take those, and that's gut healing. That will help us heal the gut. Probiotics are also going to come in here. That if our gut flora isn't well, if it's unhealthy, then we won't have good digestion. We need the good gut bacteria to break down foods so we can absorb foods, and we need them for many reasons. So fermented foods and probiotics. So I often get people to make sauerkraut or kefir or and so on, and those are really good for the gut too. So there's lots of
mm.
things that can be done to improve that. Um,
Tell me a little bit, Christine, about why you said the marshmallow root.
mm,
And for example, why is that so good for the gut, and why does it help potentially the
yeah.
microbiome or anything like that?
So marshmallow root is what we call mucilaginous. So it forms a mucilage. It's slippery, it's slimy. If you imagine the inside of your gut, inside of the body, it needs mucous membranes. And mucous membranes need to be soft and moist to do their job. And one of their jobs is as a barrier to protect the rest of the body from what's going in. So the inside of the mouth is mucous membrane, and we need that mucous membrane to be soft, to be moist, and to be intact. And marshmallow root, marshmallow leaf as well. They're both Marshmallow is really good at improving mucous membrane integrity, and it's just a very important part of the whole body, that protective mechanism. So yes, that's what that will do. And slippery elm does the same, and they also contain a lot of soluble fiber. So again, that will help the microbiome to be healthy as well. Um, Bowels need to
Because
work.
the microbiome eats the mucilage as such, does
Yes,
it? And
yeah,
it feeds
yeah,
it to generate more
yeah,
bifidobacteria, etc.,
yeah,
and more
yeah,
healthy
exactly.
populations.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I love I, I just love marshmallow. I love that you said it. There's something. It's like a wonderful plant to be around. It's so soft to touch and so big and I don't know, delicate but grand.
Good,
There's something
good.
about it. And what how do you use these? Do you mix them with water? What are you doing? Are you making a cold infusion with the marshmallow? Do you recommend that to people, or
Depends what we're
do you just
treating.
get them to make it as a tea?
Yeah, depends what we're
Yeah.
treating. So I use marshmallow leaf as a tea a lot. So with anyone with any bladder inflammation, then marshmallow leaf tea is brilliant. I will usually mix that with something like corn silk, the silk round the corn on the cob, and those two together make a wonderful tea for any bladder inflammation. Um, if we're treating the gut, the actual digestive system, then I will probably use a powder. I'll use a marshmallow root powder, and then mix that with a bit of aloe vera juice, which is also a good gut healer, or just with a little bit of water. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then you take that before eating. The idea is that, you're preparing the gut for food. You're lining the gut to make it happier for food. And then I will often the other thing I will often do to help with digestion, and again, most people that I see will get some of these, is use bitter tonic herbs to get the gut ready for eating, for digesting. As we get older, anyway, our digestive abilities decline. We just can't. When we're young, we can eat on the run and eat anything and just carry on as normal, but no problem. But as we get older, unfortunately, we have to pay attention to our digestive system because it doesn't work quite as well anymore. So bitter herbs, that bitter taste is so effective at getting digestive juices flowing. It gets the hydrochloric acid working in the gut. It gets digestive juices, all the digestive enzymes that break all the food down and get it moving. It gets it all working so much better. So bitter things are things like artichoke leaf. Artichoke leaf is a really good bitter. If anyone grows artichoke, you just touch your lip onto your tongue onto a bit of artichoke leaf, and it's bitter. It's not easy to take. Um, Things like dandelion. Dandelion's bitter. Um, Burdock is bitter. There are a lot of bitter tasting things that we maybe don't like to have, but really improve our digestion. And bitter taste, getting used to bitter taste doesn't take long, actually. It's surprising. Most people I give bitters to find that within a few days they actually quite like the bitter taste. They don't mind it
Mm.
anymore. Um,
And you're just
it,
talking about a small amount of
I'm
bitter in the
talking
diet, are you? Just having
10 drops, 20 drops, maybe 5 ml in a little water, and you have that before you eat. And it's getting the gut ready for digesting food. Of course, there's plenty of nice bitter aperitifs. They're
Mm,
particularly good at those in Europe. We haven't got a tradition in the UK, but in Europe, they have a
mm,
tradition of using bitter aperitifs. I make a
mm,
nice one with walnuts. So
mm.
the walnut, the hull, and the nuts, the whole lot before it's right. The stuff what you would make with if you were doing pickled walnuts, and I make a liqueur with that, and that's my bitter aperitif. So yes,
Oh,
it can
green
be
walnut
done.
liqueur. I mean, Christine, it
Yes,
sounds like we should come for a walk with you in the morning and then be there for a drink in the evening.
that's right.
Um,
Yes, yeah,
um, oh, that sounds amazing. So you're healing the gut by making it soft and the microbiome well fed, the tissues protected. Then you're stimulating digestion and clearing any sort of stagnation with the bitters in a way, because
yeah,
they're a little bit
yeah,
stimulating. And then, you know, it seems, by the time someone's got a chronic health problem, there's a whole lot of other attenuated pain and discomfort and
yeah,
probably,
yeah.
psychological or, emotional
That's right.
factors resulting from that suffering really or difficulty in life. And I'm sure you've got a few favorites that you use to help your
We
clients,
do. We do.
support their nervous
Yes,
system and
yes,
neurological
yeah.
system. So particularly because, so much of this, although it happens throughout life, happens as people age really. And as that builds up,
Absolutely.
it seems like it's a place
Yeah,
that herbalism has to offer society today is for some of these therapeutic gaps. It seems
yeah,
like obviously modern medicine offers so much in so many areas. Feels like that herbalism is a missing key to a more integrative and sustainable healthcare system.
yeah,
And so, because so much of our burden is on as we get older, really,
yes.
I'd love to hear how you might support some of your clients um, after you've nurtured their digestion and got their digestion going.
Well, I mean, I think you mentioned tonics earlier. So adaptogens and tonics are going to be coming in once we've got things moving well. So adaptogens and tonics are herbs that help the body to change to cope with stress. So adaptogens they help the body to cope with any stress that's hurt the body, to adapt to changes. So, for example, one a lot of people will know will be ginseng, Panax ginseng, which is a bit of a powerful adaptogen. I certainly wouldn't use it for everybody, but it's one that people know about, and it's they people call it rejuvenative, and it's youth more makes more youthful. It makes the body work better. It makes the body cope with stress. I mean, Ayurveda has some wonderful ones. So ashwagandha and shatavari are two wonderful adaptogenic herbs that I would use a lot. Nettle seed is an English one. That's another adaptogenic herb. Burdock is probably adaptogenic too. So there's many of these tonic herbs, herbs that actually help us to feel better. So what we've talked about so far is the herbs that will put the body chemistry right, make the body work better, and then we can then go on to the herbs that make us feel better as well. So we've also got herbs like verbena, um, Verbena officinalis, vervain, which is a wonderful nervine tonic herb. So
Mm.
it's got a bitter taste about it, so it will help with that. But it's calming and cooling and soothing, and really good for the nervous system. So someone that's been super anxious for a long time, give them vervain, and that will really help to calm everything down. Um, we've got quite a few herbs like that. We've got lemon balm, another nice nervine tonic herb, and they're not just nervine, they're also inflammation mediating. That's the thing. All these herbs, I don't think there's one herb that isn't inflammation mediating. I think they all have that ability in different ways to reduce inflammation. Skullcap, Scutellaria lateriflora, sorry, is another herb that I could use for anxiety if someone's very anxious about their own health. I also use flower remedies a lot. So I love flower remedies. Anyone who's been chronically ill for long term, I will almost certainly get them on some flower remedies, and I choose them for the individual, because the nice thing about flower remedies is that they work within 24 hours. People really get results very quickly from flower remedies. And sometimes when what you've got to do is change your diet, and that's what you've been eating for the last 30, 40, 50 years, it's not always easy. So it's really useful to have something that will give you that extra oomph, that extra ability to do something about your health. And so flower remedies are one really nice way to do that. Um, Again, I choose them for the individual. There isn't one particular flower remedy that I could recommend, because it depends on the individual. But
Mm.
to find a flower remedy mix that is right for you it just makes it so much easier to make these changes that you then have to make to get yourself well. So it's a get you over that starting
Well,
point. Although the first
so,
starting point is the coming to see someone. Once you say, right, there is something wrong, I need to go and see
well,
someone, that's that's the biggest hurdle. Yeah,
it's a strong message, isn't it? That change is afoot, and that
yeah,
you are going to be empowered as an individual by seeing a herbalist with
that's
and
right.
given the resources to know how to manage some of these difficulties and these limitations that have been holding you back in life. And it certainly comes across very strongly, Christine, that herbs, they don't just resolve inflammation, they're there to help support healing and health, or, optimized health in a way. And the way you talk about how we need to eat more plants and we need to, uh, increase that awareness of what suits us and what
Mm,
doesn't. And that
that's
there are some keys in a way that can help you unlock some
mm,
of those blockages. And herbalism contains a lot of those insights, and herbalists are the medium by which you can find that out.
yes,
So,
yes, definitely,
um,
yes.
well, it sounds fascinating, your work, and I'm really glad to hear you're writing more and keen to share your experience so widely. And it just feels like there's so much hope and potential from what you've shared today. So thank you
Absolutely,
for that.
there is. There's always hope for everybody. Everything can be at least improved. There's it's you should never give up. I've had some pretty dramatic people come to see me, you know, despairing, definitely despairing and wanting and thinking there's nothing that can be done. But no, last hope. But you can always help. There's always something that can be done to both improve mindset and to improve their actual health. There's so much you can do to do that. Definitely, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been really great to have the time together, and I'd encourage anyone that's listening to have a look at Herbal Reality and read Christine's article there. And there's information all about inflammation there, and all the solutions that you may want to find in the book. So thanks so much, Christine. Take care.
Thank you, Sebastian. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you.